In the year 1900, a diver surfaces from the deep waters of the Aegean Sea, frantic. He tells his captain he's seen a nightmare on the seafloor, a heap of rotting corpses and horses. The captain, suspecting his diver is suffering from nitrogen narcosis, a depth-induced hallucination, decides to descend himself. He resurfaces not with a story of horror, but with a tangible piece of history, the bronze arm of a magnificent statue. This single, chance discovery off the tiny windswept island of Antikythera would uncover the richest ancient shipwreck ever found, and an object so technologically advanced, it would force us to rewrite the history of science and engineering. This is the story of the Antikythera Shipwreck, a tale that begins with terrified divers and ends with wearable submarines, all converging on one fateful spot on the seabed. The story begins with a team of Greek sponge divers led by Captain Dimitrios Kondos. A violent storm had forced their ship to take shelter at Antikythera. While waiting for it to pass, a diver named Elias Stadiatis went down to explore. At a depth of 45 meters, he saw the scene that terrified him. The rotting corpses were in fact the scattered, algae-covered remains of stunning bronze and marble statues. Realizing the magnitude of their find, Captain Kondos reported it to the authorities in Athens. The Greek government acted swiftly, dispatching naval vessels to support what would become the first major underwater archaeological expedition in history. From late 1900 to the summer of 1901, the sponge divers undertook a heroic and perilous salvage operation. The conditions were brutal. They worked at the absolute limits of the era's technology, sharing a single canvas diving suit and heavy copper helmet. Each man could only spend a few precious, dangerous minutes at that crushing depth. The work took a heavy toll. The expedition was cut short after one diver, Georgos Kritikos, died from decompression sickness, and two others were left permanently paralyzed by it. Despite the immense risk, the treasures they brought to the surface were staggering. They recovered a stunning bronze statue of a young man, now known as the Antikythera Shipwreck, dated to around 340 BC. They salvaged 36 marble sculptures of mythological figures, like Hercules and Odysseus, as well as 3 life-size marble horses. The cargo wasn't just fine art. They found ornate glassware, beautiful ceramics, gold jewelry, and coins, all painting a picture of immense wealth. Amidst all this splendor, a heavily corroded, unassuming lump of bronze and wood was brought to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens and mostly ignored. It was set aside in storage for 2 years. Then, on May 17, 1902, an archaeologist named Valerios Stais was studying the finds. He noticed the corroded lump had split open, revealing something extraordinary inside. A complex assembly of gear wheels with faint Greek inscriptions. This object, which came to be known as the Antikythera Mechanism, was unlike anything ever seen from the ancient world. It was so advanced that many scholars initially refused to believe it came from the same shipwreck, dismissing it as a modern object that had somehow contaminated the site. But it was ancient, and it was revolutionary. Decades of intense research, using advanced X-ray and high-resolution scanning, have revealed the breathtaking complexity of this device. Originally housed in a wooden case about the size of a shoebox, the Antikythera Mechanism is now widely regarded as the world's oldest known analog computer. It consisted of at least 37 meshing bronze gears. By turning a hand crank, a user could model the movements of the sun and the moon through the zodiac. It could predict solar and lunar eclipses with remarkable accuracy. It even tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. The device incorporated a sophisticated model for the irregular orbit of the moon, a feat of mechanical engineering that would not be matched by any known technology for over 1,000 years. The discovery of the Antikythera Mechanism single-handedly proved that the ancient Greeks were far more technologically advanced than we had ever imagined. After this initial flurry of activity, the wreck lay largely undisturbed for over 70 years. the site was too deep and too dangerous for the available technology. The silence was broken in 1976, when the legendary explorer Jacques Cousteau returned to Antikythera with his research vessel, the Calypso. Using the latest tech of his era, including suction dredges to gently clear away sediment, his team recovered nearly 300 additional artifacts. Crucially, coins found during this expedition helped to more precisely date the shipwreck to between 76 and 67 BC. This new evidence debunked a long-standing theory that the ship was carrying loot from the Roman general Sulla's sack of Athens. The dating pointed to a later, but no less significant, voyage. Most poignantly, Cousteau's team also recovered the skeletal remains of at least 4 individuals, the first direct evidence of the people who sailed on this ill-fated ship. After Cousteau's expedition, another long period of silence fell over the site, but the dawn of the 21st century brought a revolution in underwater technology, making a new era of exploration possible. In 2012, a new international project called Return to Antikythera was launched. Led by marine archaeologists from the Hellenic Ministry of Culture, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and later the University of Geneva, its goal was to conduct the first ever systematic, scientific excavation of the shipwreck. To do this, they brought a technological arsenal that the early divers could only dream of. First, autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, were deployed. These robotic torpedoes surveyed the area with sonar and stereo cameras, creating incredibly detailed 3D maps of the wreck site and the surrounding seabed. This gave the archaeologists a complete blueprint before a single human diver entered the water. For the divers themselves, the technology was a game changer. They used mixed gas, closed-circuit rebreathers. Unlike traditional scuba gear, which releases bubbles, rebreathers recycle a diver's air, scrubbing out carbon dioxide and adding precise amounts of oxygen. This allows for much longer and safer dives, up to 3 hours at a time, compared to just a few minutes in 1900. Then, in 2014, the team brought in a truly futuristic piece of equipment, the exosuit. You can picture it as a wearable submarine. It's a one-of-a-kind, $1.5 million atmospheric diving suit. The pilot inside remains at normal sea level pressure, completely eliminating the risk of decompression sickness. Equipped with thrusters and powerful grippers, the exosuit allows a diver to work at extreme depths for hours on end with unprecedented safety. Armed with this technology, the Return to Antikythera team has made a series of spectacular discoveries. In 2015, they found over 50 new artifacts, including a bronze armrest that might have belonged to a throne, the remains of a bone flute, and a pawn from an ancient board game, offering intimate glimpses into life aboard the ship. In 2016 came one of the most significant finds, a human skeleton, buried under sediment and broken pottery. Nicknamed Pamphilos, this was the first skeleton to be recovered from an ancient shipwreck in the age of DNA analysis. The find, which included a skull with teeth, offered the tantalizing possibility of extracting ancient DNA to learn about the victim's ethnicity and geographic origin. The discoveries have continued to pour in. In 2022, the team moved several massive boulders that had been pinning down parts of the wreck for 2 millennia. Underneath, they found a magnificent, larger-than-life-size marble head of a bearded man, identified as Hercules. It is believed that this head belongs to the headless statue of Hercules that was recovered by the sponge divers back in 1900, a reunion more than a century in the making. In that same season, they found 2 more human teeth, adding more pieces to the biological puzzle of who was on this ship. The most recent expeditions have yielded even more. The team has successfully recovered significant portions of the ship's hull itself, with planks and frames still attached. Analysis has identified the wood as elm and oak, and confirmed the ship was built using the shell-first method, where the outer hull was constructed before the internal ribs were installed. We are finally learning about the vessel itself, a massive merchant ship, perhaps up to 50 meters long. But perhaps the most shocking new discovery has added a whole new layer of intrigue. The high-tech mapping has confirmed the presence of a second ancient shipwreck, just a few hundred meters away from the first. Initial analysis suggests it dates from around the same period. Was this a companion vessel that sank in the same storm? Or was it an unrelated tragedy that occurred at a different time? This new mystery awaits its own investigation. Thanks to over a century of exploration, the full story of the Antikythera ship is emerging from the depths. We now see a massive vessel, perhaps a grain carrier, sailing from a major port in the eastern Mediterranean like Pergamon or Ephesus. It was destined for Italy, carrying a specially commissioned collection of Greek masterpieces for an incredibly wealthy Roman patron. On board were not just sailors, but likely wealthy passengers, with their fine tableware, jewelry, and games. The human remains, from those found by Cousteau to Pamphilos, are our most direct link to them. Ongoing analysis may soon tell us who they were and where they came from. The Antikythera Shipwreck is more than just a treasure chest. It's a time capsule that gave birth to the entire field of underwater archaeology. For over 120 years, it has been a crucible for innovation, pushing the boundaries of deep-sea exploration. From the heroic sponge divers of 1900 to the pilot of the Ironman exosuit today, the story of Antikythera is a testament to the human quest for knowledge. And with new discoveries still being made, this incredible adventure is far from over.